From Nashville's WSM Radio, the original home of the Grand Ole Opry, this is a Coffee, Country, and Cody podcast.
Hey, it's Charlie Matos, and in this episode, we sit down with Ron Block, longtime member of Alison Krauss Union Station, 14-time Grammy Award winner, 6-time an IBMA Award winner, CMA and Dove Awards on his trophy shelf as well, and a new book, Abiding Dependence, Living Moment by Moment in the Love of God. I hope you enjoy our conversation with Ron Block.
Coffee, Country, and Cody on WSM.
Ron Block, a little Christmas music back from the break here on 650 AM WSM. The last time you were here with Jeff Taylor, you famously played the Doxology.
Yes.
Which I don't think had ever been done on WSM radio, at least not live.
That's right. That's right.
And it thrilled my soul as a Baptist preacher's kid because every Sunday of my life, my father would start the service with the Doxology.
Beautiful.
And it was wonderful to hear that. But not only is this 14-time Grammy Award winner, such an accomplished songwriter, he's now writing books. Did you run out of song ideas?
Well, I've sometimes asked myself that question. No, I was approached by Moody because a friend of mine had a friend at Moody, and that friend at Moody asked my friend, do you know anybody that would be great to write a book? And he said Ron Block, and Andrew Osenga is my friend's name. So
now, why would he say that about you?
Well, because I tend to have these spiritual conversations with people sometimes. If they, open up in front of me, I don't try to push that. But yeah, I've had lots of great conversations with Andrew Osenga. He's part of a community called the Rabbit Room. Andrew Peterson kind of started this whole artistic and Christ-centered community, so I've written for that website for ages.
It's called the Rabbit Room.
TheRabbitRoom.com.
Okay. Yeah.
So,
your book is called Living Moment by Moment in the Love of God, Abiding Dependence. I love that title, Ron. Abiding Dependence.
Yeah.
We don't realize, do we? We become independent.
Yeah.
Individually.
Yeah.
But forget about the true the true dependence that we have.
Yeah. We kind of at any moment we have a choice between depending on God and being independent. And I don't mean just like trying to obey God. I mean like if God, as Orthodox Christianity says, God is omnipresent. So if he's everywhere at all times, and the Bible says this explicitly, that Christ lives in us. So he lives in me. So I can depend on that God to give me what I need in the moment: strength, joy, peace, intelligence, the ability to respond to people, right? All those things are given in the moment, but we have to be abiding in the moment, trusting in the moment. Like the manna only works for right this second. You know what I mean? You can only feed on the manna right now. You can eat it now, or you can not eat it. That's kind of your choice.
It's interesting. Our pastor a few weeks ago was saying that while it's wonderful to study and read the Bible, many, and he looked out, and I'm talking to many of you, you know it as like it's a history class.
Yeah.
But it's a living history class. It's alive. It's not,
alive.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's that's another sort of function. It can be a function of thinking we're independent. I've got to get more information, and if I get more information, then I'm going to be a better Christian. Mm-hmm. But we're not changed or transformed by mere information. We have to eat it, and then we become transformed by it. So the Bible is there to point us to Christ, point us to Jesus, so that we trust God, begin to trust God, and trust Him with ourselves. And
Pastor Lance at my church at Orlinda Baptist on Sunday mentioned, and as I was reading through the book on page 60 here, it comes right to it. He was saying, but unless you become as little children.
Yeah.
And you talk specifically about that. You write, and I read, the disciples asked, who then is greatest in the kingdom of heaven? Jesus put a little child in the midst of them and said, assuredly, I say to you, unless you are converted and become as little children, you will by no means enter the kingdom of heaven.
Yeah.
It's pretty simple.
It is simple. A little child, one that's been treated well, a little child trusts. They have a level of trust, and they don't try to be independent. And good parents correct them if they do, right? but for the most part, a good child like that is a childlike child, looks up at their father or mother and trusts them. And that's really the main thing God requires from us, is not a bunch of stuff we have to do or lists we have to accomplish. It's simple trust, and it's trust in the moment. It's that dependent, resting, abiding reliance on an indwelling spirit. That's what that is.
Where did your journey begin as a kid in Southern California, the son of, I think your dad had a music store, didn't he?
Yeah, Dad had a music store. My mom had a hard past, and she found Jesus when I was about 2 years old. She started taking me to church, and then I was about 6, and I went forward in church, and I went to church with her for several years, and then lots of things happened in my life, and I ended up living down in Southern California with Dad and started playing music and went through my teen years, and at 26 joined Alison. This is the short form. Just like zoom,
But where do people like J.D. Crowe and Bill Monroe and the Stanley Brothers come into your life?
Well, I used to go to Norco Bluegrass Festival, and Grass Valley is another one. There were festivals all up and down that I found once I was mobile with a 65 Mustang.
All right. Boss car.
Yeah, it was a boss car. So once I was mobile, I could go to festivals, and that's where I saw, some of these festivals had Bill Monroe and Crow and
were you already playing
Ralph
at this point
Stanley?
in time,
I was already playing. Yeah, I started playing when I was 11. So I got to see all the founding. Jim and Jesse came out lots. Ralph Stanley came out a lot, and I loved all that stuff. And I still do. I still listen to all that old music.
Well, speaking of music, let's feature the Walking song from about, 10 years ago, I guess, that album and that title track.
Yep.
What's the backstory on the Walking song? Because I always loved it.
I co-wrote that, co-written a bunch of songs with a woman named Rebecca Reynolds, and we wrote a lot, and we will write in the future on Skype.
Oh, okay.
So we just wrote over the internet, and she lives in East Tennessee. She's been a teacher. She's an amazing lyricist anyway. She's a poet. She's very, very beautifully poetic in her word use. So,
Ron Block is our guest. The book will continue on the book, too, featuring living moment by moment in the love of God. Abiding Dependence is the title. And where would you suggest people go to get it, Ron?
They can get it from my website, ronblock.com, or they can get it from rabbitroom.com or Amazon or any place fine Christian books are sold.
We welcome Ron Block, living moment by moment in the love of God. His new book, Abiding Dependence. It's available wherever fine books are sold, as we were saying a little bit earlier. But you recommend just simply your website. It's a great place to start, ronblock.com.
It's a good place.
Keep it simple.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. All right. I want to read a couple of things here. A weak person is the only one asked to come to Jesus. Self-reliant, proud, independent people won't, like the Pharisees, Herod, and Pilate, because they don't see the need.
Yep.
Wow.
And even as Christians, we have to come to see our need. Like, we can come and go, I want to go to heaven, so I'm going to trust Jesus. But then we go on living our lives in sort of this independent, I've got to just be good and try to be good and try to be like Christ-like. And so we go from our own effort and our own strength and our own. So what happens usually in life is life ends up breaking you down somewhat.
How have you managed to maintain, and of all things, the music business? Maybe the toughest one of all to maintain your spiritual walk.
I've had my ups and downs. I've had lots of stuff for me is internal. It's been internal stuff that I've gone through, and depression and frustration and all those kinds of things that every normal human goes through. But there's a grounding place. And that's what this book is about. The book is about, it's not about like abiding dependence, never sinning again, or never always living perfectly. It's about having a grounding place that you can actually start every day with And then throughout the day, if you get pulled from it, you can go, wait a second. Oh, yeah, God is with me. He's in me. He's all around me. He's with the people that I'm with, right?
You said something there. You said you could pull yourself away. You write in here, when we rest, relying on and trusting in God, he goes to work.
Yeah.
We are so busy as a society.
Oh, yeah.
Every second of our lives, some impulse is coming in electronically these days.
Oh, my gosh. Yeah, social media is mind-numbing.
But and that's what I was thinking when I read that when we rest, he goes to work.
Yeah. Yeah, and sometimes that means just like taking a step back, taking a breath. In a situation that's stressful, you just go, wait a sec. Okay, I'm going to trust you. And you internally, you don't have to say it out loud, but you internally just affirm who he is and what he's capable of, because he's got an IQ of infinity, right? Infinity
Something
IQ.
that's never been said about this show.
Yeah.
No, we're more double-digit people here, I think. Yeah.
Look up finite.
Yeah, that's right. So I can live from my finite IQ and try to figure out situations on my own, or I can rest and go, Lord, you're gonna show me what I need to say and say and do.
You know, it's interesting too. I've had people say that well, while they believe, it's like, yeah, but I'm not one of those that God or Jesus ever speaks to me, and I'm like, well, gosh, did you ever have a gut feeling? Just don't walk down that alley, or don't get on that elevator, or that's not the thing to do right now.
Yeah.
Or maybe
who do you think that might be?
Right.
Seriously though. I mean, it can be that simple.
It is.
Yeah.
It
and
is.
you're just not listening.
Yeah.
Yeah, we confuse the voice. We always think the voice is just us. Yeah. So even with negative voices, negative thoughts come into your head. Well, where do they come from? You got to ask yourself that question. Did I make that up? Where did that come from? Did positive, loving, kind thoughts come into my head? Where does that come from? Where do my thoughts come from? Right?
I think people expect James Earl Jones, or
right.
John Facenda from the great NFL films.
Yeah, I think there is a lot to Charlton Heston.
Yeah.
Back to the Bible stories that were movies.
Yeah, but he most often speaks in our own voice. He'll sound, it'll sound like me, and I'll sit and think about that, and I'll go, well, I would have never thought of that, or to say that, or do that. Things come to you that wouldn't come otherwise.
This is a daily devotional in a lot of ways, and you can work through it in 40 days with one chapter a day, which starts with life and breath. Kind of set it up for folks on how the book starts.
It starts with just the idea, like in the introduction, about sort of tuning up before the show begins. So I tune before our band starts playing. I go through all my guitars and banjos and I tune everything.
As Chris Jansen says at the Opry, I tune because I care.
Exactly. And so if I don't tune, no matter what I play is going to sound bad. Mm-hmm. It doesn't matter. I can play brilliantly, and if it's out of tune, it doesn't matter. So it's the premise is that we get in tune with God, and it isn't like a bunch of work or striving. It's simply getting in tune by just resting and releasing and relaxing and going, I know I have a lot to do today, Lord, but I'm going to trust you, and I am abiding in you right now. I do believe that you're in me. I do believe that you're going to live through me today to people. You're going to love people in my life. And so I want you to remind me of that. I want you to pull me back if I start stepping out of that. I want to be aware of you all the time. And so that's all that is. So the chapter Life and Breath just talks about that. It talks about our breath. We can't go 20 minutes without breathing. We can't go 10 minutes without breathing. And so, we can't live a truly Christian life for 10 minutes without breathing in the Spirit of God, without living and realizing we're in that atmosphere and breathing in that atmosphere of heaven. We can't live a truly Christian life.
Ron Block, the book, Abiding Dependence, Living Moment by Moment in the Love of God. You write in your introduction, he wants to spend time with him so that you and I can become our real selves and find him as a source, our center, shucking off all the false identities, masks, and shields we've donned to deal with the life of this world. And if a God like that sounds weird to you, you have, I love this, as a country music reference, if nothing else, you may have been sold oceanfront property in Death Valley.
And that's kind of literally true in a way. It's a symbol, but it's also literal. You know, that's walking in the shadow of death if you're not walking in the shadow of life.
Ron, thank you for coming and sharing this with us this morning.
Thanks for having me.
What are you
This
doing
is
for
great.
Christmas?
I'm going up to Canada to my in-laws. My wife and kids are going up too, so we're all going up
What are
there.
your kids' ages now?
They are 22 and 24.
Oh my
believe
gosh,
it or
I've
not.
watched them grow up in the time I've been here.
Wow.
They have been born and grown into young adults.
So the other day, Bill informed us that we have about a 2% chance of a white Christmas here in Nashville. What would you guess Ron's chance of a white Christmas would be? Slightly higher?
I think they had a white Thanksgiving, maybe.
I probably, yeah. No, I've only had one brown Christmas up there one time, and it was 20-some years ago.
Wow.
Yeah, it's always white, and it's always, a couple feet thick.
Ron Block on Coffee, Country, and Cody. RonBlock.com for more. And to get the book, again, it's called Abiding Dependence, Living Moment by Moment in the Love of God. We're going to close with an Alison Krauss work that you co-wrote called A Living Prayer.
Yep.
Set this up for us.
I wrote this. I just had one time. It was one of those things where I felt like it was the voice of God saying, I was praying something, and he said, I've already done that. And I said, well, what do I pray for? And he said, you are a prayer. You're a living prayer. And it's kind of what we all are. We're all meant to be that. We're meant to walk and manifest the life of God through our lives to other people, and we don't do that perfectly. It's just that we're meant to grow in it, and we're meant to practice that presence. So I wrote the song, probably a year or two later. That phrase popped into my head as I was writing it.
Well, this old world can sure be dark sometimes, and particularly in these long runs of gloomy weather that we've had here in Middle Tennessee. But thank you for being a bright light, man.
Thanks so much.
I
Thanks,
appreciate
Bill.
that.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing your gift. You're on 650.
Thanks for listening to the Coffee, Country, and Cody podcast. Make sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode. And please leave us a 5-star review. This podcast was produced through the facilities of WSM Radio in Nashville, Tennessee. The hosts of Coffee, Country, and Cody are Bill Cody, Charlie Matos, and Kelly Sutton. Producer Eric Markham. WSM General Manager and Director of Content and Programming, J. Patrick Tittle. Copyright 2022, Opry Entertainment Group Holdings, LLC.